guys, it's Theresa here of Larkin Design, and so welcome to my Bermuda Honeymoon album that I have been working through and sharing layouts with you from this project. And so today I wanted to share with you this layout here that I created using the Celine Studio Project Mouse Beginnings collection. And this layout actually came together pretty interesting because I started it in Photoshop and used Photoshop to help me organize the layout and help me figure out how I wanted to arrange the elements on the page. And then I used the layout in Photoshop to print those elements, and then I created the layout itself in a traditional way. So this video is actually going to have two parts. There's going to be the Photoshop portion where I show you how you can use Photoshop to organize your digital elements on the page and print them, and then I'll go to my desk and I'll share with you that part of the process for creating the layout itself once everything is printed. So let's get going. I'll share with you how I did the digital portion of this layout. Okay, so I'm going to start here by opening a new canvas, and I want to tell it this album size is 9 by 12, so I'm going to tell Photoshop that it's to be 9 inches wide, 12 inches high, and 300 ppi. I'm going to add a second layer that is the white layer. I always keep the first layer intact just in case I need it later or something. And then I'm going to begin opening my elements here. I'm going to start with the photo, and I know that I want to use one of the beach photos here from Horseshoe Bay, so I'm going to just locate those and select the one that I want to use. I think this one is probably the most dramatic one that I took, and you'll get to see the other ones later on. I am going to brighten it just a little bit. These photos were not edited at all when I had them developed years ago. So just a little editing is okay to do. I'm going to brighten a little bit as well. Some of the greenery here, just a little tiny bit here and there. And then I'm going to bring the image into my canvas. Now, you will notice that it is just a tiny bit smaller than the canvas is. I wanted the photo to be 9 inches wide. And so when I printed it, I did lose a little tiny bit of photo quality, but I'm not going to stress about it. It's going to be okay. There's actually a story behind what happened with the photos. And I'm not really sure actually what happened with them. When we came back from Bermuda, I had them printed and thought that I had, of course, downloaded them from the camera and saved them in the normal location. And since then, that was like 5 years ago, and since then I've changed laptops twice and then changed over to my main desktop, and somewhere in all that they got lost. So the only photos that I have from this vacation were the ones that I downloaded to Walgreens to have developed. So that's why they're a different size. They're a smaller size because Walgreens resizes everything, but they are still usable, and printing it in a 9-inch wide format, it turned out okay. So anyway, the tragic story of our Bermuda photos. Back up. Just telling you. And even when you back up online somewhere so that you have them if you need them. What I'm doing now is a combination of bringing in each of the journaling cards into the layout, and I've also created my rectangles that will be my clipping masks, and I just duplicated the layer duplicated the rectangle layer 5 times. And then each one of the journaling cards will be brought on top of their perspective rectangle and then clipped to that rectangle. They are 2 inches by 2 inches square. And so that's kind of what I'm going through right now. And then it's a matter of figuring out which rectangle you're working with, and make sure that you're in that rectangle, and then make sure that your journaling card is on top of that rectangle in order for the clipping mask to work. I think in the end, on that stripe, I think that I actually used the pattern paper, not the journaling card, on the actual layout itself. So if that looks different, that's probably why. But you would obviously bring in your pattern paper the same as you would bring in your journaling card, and then size it down so that it matches the scale. And this is about scale here. I want the because it's a 2x2, not a 3x4. I want the pattern, the scale of the pattern, to match the scale of the rectangle. One, so that you see the pattern as it is, and 2, because this is a study in contrast. So this photo is really big and prominent in the layout itself, but the journaling cards are smaller and more petite in scale in contrast to the photo, but they have presence because there's 6 of them all together. So this is a study in contrast and a study in balance, because the 6 of these little 2-inch squares all together they're the sum of the parts, right? The whole is the sum of the parts, and they all together balance the heaviness of the photo at the bottom. But they don't register heavy visually once they're printed, and once they're on the layout. They're not visually heavy because I kept them light by printing them on vellum. So these are some of the tricks that design tricks and design tips that I've used to create this layout and to give it the overall feel that it has. This is why this works. There's balance here and there's contrast that are working together to bring all these elements together. Hopefully that's helpful to you in sort of learning some design speak and blah blah blah. And I think there's just one more card here to bring in. And size it down, and then we'll be done with this part of the layout. Okay, so at this point, I have the layout laid out how I want it. I've determined, and I went into it sort of knowing I wanted the photo at the bottom half of the layout, and then that I was going to arrange some of the journaling cards and or pattern papers at the top half, and then layer these on the physical layout itself. And so just a few notes about why I chose the cards that I chose. I wanted to bring in the blues and the pinks, and I wanted a little tiny bit of the yellow. I love this pattern, and it's really, for me at this point, because this was the first layout that I created using the Beginnings collection. And so at this point for me, I'm strictly choosing my favorites. So these are my favorites. And maybe I'm not supposed to have favorites. I don't know, but I think we do. I think we have favorites in any collection that comes into our hands. We have favorites, and we have patterns, and we have colors that we're drawn to. And the pinks and the blues in this collection draw me in, and they call to me and they say, you have to use these, right? I've always been a turquoise fan. Always, always, always. And pink is also one of my favorite colors. And pink and turquoise are actually very true to our wedding. The colors for our wedding were pink and turquoise together. And so I'm staying true to that. And then the pop of yellow is fantastic here, because then it's going to allow me to bring in all my favorite embellishments, and it's going to complete this color scheme that's going on. So anything that is yellow I can bring in here. Anything that's gold I can bring in. And there's already a little bit of green already in the photo itself. So for me at this point, my color palette is wide open. I can use any of the colors that I want to use, and these journaling cards have helped me establish that. So that's a little tiny snapshot into why I chose these journaling cards. And so at this point, I know sort of what my layout is going to look like. At this point, I can print everything out and layer everything, and then add my embellishments. I can add my date. If I want to add journaling, I can add journaling. If I want to add journaling to the photo here or along the sides or something, or if I wanted to add journaling here in Photoshop, I absolutely could at this point. Now, I'm going to leave the journaling to a minimum on this layout. I already know that I have several other layouts to create from this particular beach. So I'm going to talk about my journaling and this beach and what we were doing that day. I'm going to talk about that in other areas in the album. So I'm giving myself permission on this layout just to enjoy the photo and the embellishments. So I'm ready to print this. And here's how I'm going to make this really simple for myself. I'm going to print the journaling cards first. And I already know that I'm going to print them on vellum. This is something that I do a lot. You guys know I usually, when I'm printing digital elements, I usually print them on cardstock and on vellum so that I have some options. Sometimes I print them on transparencies. These would be beautiful printed on transparencies as well as printed on vellum. But I've got vellum easily available, and so all I need to do here is I'm going to go into the layer that the photo is on, and I'm going to press the eyeball, and that is going to disappear. And so voila, now I have these that are just ready to be sent to the printer. Now my canvas itself is 9 by 12. So how to print it keeping it true to size on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And now I'm using a Canon Pixma, so you may have to play around a little bit with your printer to figure out how it does the sizing. And Photoshop allows you some bonus features as well for manipulating the printing size. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. These are my print settings that come up in Photoshop. And right now it's set on the Canon printer, and then right now it's set for 13 by 19 size sheet. But I want to print it on 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to go deeper here into my print settings, maybe, if it will do it. There it is. Okay. And so we definitely want borderless printing. Actually, since I'm printing on vellum, I really want to put it on plain paper and do a standard print quality, or you can do a draft print quality. And then select 8.5 by 11, and let's do a preview before printing so we can make sure that we've got it right. And then orientation, we may change that in a minute, and then hit OK. and then your preview here will change. Okay, and so you can see that it recenters this, and so you're going, well, that's going to cut off your journaling cards. And so here I'm going to go and unclick the center button, and then for the top margin I just put 0.347, and for the left margin, I mean, you can leave it at 1 or put 0.347 again, and your scale is going to be at 100%. Okay, and it has turned it to the horizontal orientation so that it's 9 inches wide. We're not worried about the height, but we do want the 9 inches wide on the 8.5 by 11 sheet. And then you just hit print and put your vellum in your printer and it will go. I don't need to do that right now, so I'm going to hit cancel. And then to print the photo, I'm going to do the exact same thing, except I'm going to turn the photo back on and turn off all of my journaling cards here, because we don't need to waste the ink on printing those again. Okay, so just the photo comes up, and now when we go to the print screen, we're going to tell it, it's going to come up and show that the half the photo is cut off. So we're just going to go to the center again, and here you have to play around with it. Play around with it a little bit. Let's do -4. Yeah, so that's pretty decent. It has the whole photo on the page, and you have a little bit of a margin left around it, so you know that you're covered. And we are going to go back here. I did print this photo on glossy photo paper. I still love glossy photos on a traditional layout. So for that, I'm going to go back and choose a glossy photo paper. Still do standard print quality. You can do high print quality, but it goes through your ink so much faster. So I say stick with a standard print quality, and on the Canon it prints really beautifully just on the standard. So anyway, that is my quick printing tutorial, and I'm going to just hit cancel there. We've got our layout ready to go. Let me turn these back on so you can see that one more time. One more. There we go. And then now I'm going to switch you to my worktop so you can see the embellishing portion of the layout. Okay, so I'm at my desk, and here are all the elements that are printed out and ready to be pulled all together and then embellished. And so you can see I have my sheet of vellum, and I have my photo here, and I have my white cardstock. It's just plain white basil cardstock, and I'm going to trim everything out really quick so you can see how the photo printed on my photo paper. And so it's approximately 9 inches by 6 or so. Actually, let me measure real quick. It's 9 by 6 3/4. And then you'll be able to see there are my vellum journaling cards that are printed on the vellum, and then I'm going to trim those out real quick. Those are 2 by 2 squares. I didn't specify that before. So they are 2 by 2 inch squares, and yeah, so they're ready to go. And once I get those trimmed out, now I've already pulled out some embellishments that I know I want to use. So I'll talk with you a little bit about the embellishments that I've chosen. Obviously, I have some of the digital elements printed out from the Beginnings collection. Those are in that little bowl, and so they're printed on cardstock and on vellum as always. And then I have some things from Ellie's Studio, the acrylic hearts that you see there. And there's also a stamp set that I'm using from One Little Bird that's available at Studio Calico. It's the travel stamp set. And there's a couple of things that I pulled from Freckled Fawn as well. Anything that has these colors or anything that has an organic feel to it is sort of what I had in my mind when I pulled my embellishments out. So now I'm going to start layering everything on my cardstock. The photo was just a little bit wider than the cardstock, so another quick trim there. There were also some embellishments from the Crepe Paper Oasis collection, and I also ended up using the little alphabet stamps from the Hazelwood collection from American Crafts. And I also brought in this doily. Now, I wasn't sure which size I wanted to use. There's a gold one that I was going to use the white of the back for, but then I decided that this soft pink one made me a little bit happier. It's hard to tell, particularly in the photos, but it is actually just light pink. And so it's just a little something to back those elements with and provide another layer there, just another point of interest. So I am going to try to center these. This is probably the most difficult part of this layout, is centering 6 squares in a specified area. So they're probably not perfect, and that is one of the to me one of the fun parts of doing this in physical form, because then you get the irregularities, and it's not all perfect, and every space in between these cards isn't perfect. And for me, that's sort of organic as well. Just like this photo is very organic. There's rough in this photo, right? There's the roughness of the stones and the rocks and the roughness of the waves. And then there's this very smooth blue sea and the blue sky and the smooth sand. And even sand, has this organic feel to it. It looks so beautifully smooth, and then when you step on it, you feel that texture under your toes. So these are some of the feelings that you want to carry through in your embellishing. Is think about how that beach made you feel, or this place that you are at, and how can you carry that feel through your embellishing. So these acrylic hearts echo the glass appearance of the sea, right? And there's just various different ways to carry that feeling through your embellishments. I love repeating the palm tree elements on these layouts and in this album. I always love palm trees, and having grown up in the Caribbean, it's sort of like home for me. There were a lot of things in Bermuda that were sort of like home for me. So it's just nice to remember those things, and I love having these embellishments that help me feel that way too, and that help me remember what were my favorite things about being here. So I took the little vellum magic here. What does it say again? Magic right here label. And I layered that, so it's a vellum label layered on top of a vellum journaling card, and then I'm going to stamp Bermuda on this little tag here. This is, like, honestly and truthfully, this is the extent of the journaling, and so I've talked about that already, and that's okay. but some of the other elements carry some journaling with it as well. So some of the text that's on the layout, obviously magic right here, and then the arrow underneath on the yellow journaling card says love it, and there's a sticker that says vacation mode, and there's also some chipboard stickers that say this happened, beautiful, and such a happy moment. So all of those things sort of encapsulate how this place made us feel. And so I'll tell you about Horseshoe Bay. This is what this place is called. And so I've shared with you that Alan and I rented a scooter while we were on the island, and we just went everywhere. We just went everywhere on the island, everywhere we could find a road that went to, and we just were like, well, we'll see what we find here. And I love the spirit of adventure, and we don't know where we're going, but when we get there, we're gonna love it, right? And that's how we discovered this beach. And it's actually several beaches all together, but they're divided up by these rocks, and you can climb over them, and you can swim, obviously, and you can hang out, and it's just a really amazing place to be. And so we ended up hanging out there for a couple of hours. Interestingly enough, we didn't have our bathing suits with us. I don't know why, but we didn't have our bathing suits with us, so we didn't end up swimming, but we did have a really good time just walking around and touring, and I'm sure we dipped our feet in the water, and it was a really beautiful day. You can see how crystal clear the sky is. Just a beautiful place to be. We met some interesting people while we were there, and took so many gorgeous photos, and it was just amazing. I would love to go back there. There's not a hotel there, so you can't actually stay at this beach, but it is a great place to visit. Definitely a favorite. So I'm going to add just a few tiny embellishments here in this lower right hand corner, and this is to help bring your eye down into the photo. I'm also adding a date. Psst, it's the wrong date. But it's okay, right? And I'm totally going to leave it. Right there with the wrong date on it. I don't know what I was thinking, but so we got married on September 15th, and we went to Bermuda on the 16th, and this was a couple of days after we got there. But it's okay. Totally going to leave the wrong date on there. I'm just going to be a human being. And so I also wanted to add this chipboard glitter palm tree again, just echoing that shape and echoing the organics of this location. So I stapled the vellum journaling spot, and then attached the little chipboard phrase, and then the little chipboard leaf. I love this, just a little tiny bit of sparkle. There's not a lot of sparkle on this layout. And then I'm going to stamp the geotag. Now, I love this stamp set because you can stamp all these little tiny things inside the geotag. So I totally have done that here. I'm going to stamp the geotag itself, and then I'm going to stamp "We are here" in the middle of it. I'm sorry, it says "We were here." And then cut that out. You could stamp that on the photo itself, but I decided I think that actually stamping on white cardstock just makes it stand out better, to be quite honest. So there, that's how that went. And then the little leaf. And I'm deciding that it needs just a little tiny puffy sticker. and then this layout will be finished. So I'm so thankful that you followed along on this ride. I hope that this has been informative and helpful in seeing how to use Photoshop to create your traditional layouts, and how to do this in a hybrid way. It's been a lot of fun sharing it with you, and I'm totally enjoying sharing this Bermuda album with you. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you will like and comment, and be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you back here again soon. Bye bye, you guys.